I told my childhood friend I'm in love with her. Did I ruin everything? I never thought a single letter could change my life. It wasn't even supposed to be sent. It was just a late-night ramble, a way to get my feelings out when I couldn't sleep. But the next morning, in my groggy haze, I sealed it up and mailed it. By the time I realized what I'd done, it was too late. The letter was to Emma, my best friend since childhood. We'd grown up together, shared every secret, every heartbreak. She was the one constant in my life, the one person I could always count on. And for years, I'd harbored a secret I never dared to speak aloud. I was in love with her. That night, as I sat at my kitchen table with a glass of wine, the weight of that secret became too much to bear. I poured my heart onto the page, confessing everything. How every laugh we shared made my heart race, how her smile brightened even my darkest days, and how every time she talked about another guy, it felt like a knife to the chest. I wrote that I was terrified of ruining our friendship, that I would rather be her friend forever than risk losing her. But more than anything, I wrote that I couldn't keep pretending anymore. And then, I mailed it. For days, I was a wreck. I avoided her calls, too scared to hear her voice, too terrified to face what I'd done. Each day felt like an eternity, with my mind spiraling through every possible scenario. What if she was horrified? What if she laughed it off, or worse, felt sorry for me? I knew her so well, but suddenly she felt like a stranger, a mystery I couldn't solve. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart would skip a beat, only to crash back down when it wasn't her. Each passing day, without hearing from her, felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. The fear of rejection, the anxiety over what I might have ruined. It all consumed me. I could barely eat or sleep, my mind stuck on a loop of what-ifs. Then, one evening, as I sat on my couch staring blankly at the TV, my phone buzzed again. It was a text from Emma. "Can we meet? I need to talk to you." My stomach dropped. My hands trembled as I stared at the screen, rereading the words over and over again. This was it. The moment I'd been dreading and anticipating all at once. The "I'm flattered, but" speech, the awkwardness that would follow, the slow drift apart, but I couldn't avoid her forever, so I agreed. We arranged to meet at our usual spot, a small cafe on the corner of Main Street. It was a place filled with memories, endless conversations over cups of coffee, shared laughter and comfort during tough times. But today, it felt like a courtroom where my fate would be decided. I got there early, nerves eating away at me as I nursed a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. The minutes ticked by, each one feeling like an eternity. I kept my eyes on the door, my heart racing every time someone walked in. And then, she appeared. When Emma walked in, my heart stuttered. She looked the same as always, beautiful, confident, everything I wasn't feeling at that moment. But there was something different in her eyes, something I couldn't quite place. It wasn't pity or discomfort, but something softer, something that made my breath catch. She sat down across from me, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence was suffocating, pressing down on me with the weight of 1,000 unsaid words. I could barely meet her gaze, too afraid of what I might see there. Finally, she broke the silence. "I got your letter." Her voice was calm, almost gentle, but the words hit me like a punch to the gut. My mouth went dry, and I struggled to find something, anything, to say. I didn't mean to send it," I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. "But you did," she replied, her tone unchanging. "Yeah, I did." It was all I could manage. There was another long pause, and I braced myself for what she was about to say. I've read it 100 times, she said softly, her eyes searching mine. At first, I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to lose you either. I finally looked up, and what I saw in her eyes wasn't what I'd expected. It wasn't pity, nor was it the awkward discomfort I'd feared. Instead, there was something else. Something that looked an awful lot like hope. I've been feeling the same way for a long time, she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. I just didn't know how to tell you. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It was like the world had shifted, and suddenly everything was in focus. The weight that had been pressing down on me for years lifted, replaced by something warm and wonderful. I love you, I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. I've loved you for so long. A slow smile spread across her face, and she reached across the table, taking my hand in hers. I love you too. We sat there for what felt like hours, talking and laughing like we always had. But this time, there was no holding back. The walls we'd both built up over the years came down, and for the first time, I felt like we were truly seeing each other. As we continued to talk, the conversation flowed effortlessly between us, touching on memories from our past, our hopes for the future, and everything in between. It was as if the letter had opened a door that had always been there, waiting for us to step through. I always wondered, Emma said at one point, her thumb gently tracing circles on the back of my hand, if you felt the same way. There were moments when I thought maybe you did, but I was too scared to ask. I didn't want to ruin what we had. I felt the same, I admitted. Every time I wanted to say something, I'd convince myself that it was better to stay silent, that it was better to have you as a friend than to risk losing you entirely. I guess we were both cowards, she said with a small laugh, her eyes sparkling with the warmth that had always made my heart race. Maybe, I agreed, smiling back at her. But maybe we were just waiting for the right moment. Emma squeezed my hand, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace. The fear, the anxiety, the years of unspoken words, they all faded away, leaving only the warmth of her touch and the love we'd both been too afraid to acknowledge. As the evening wore on, we decided to leave the cafe. The night air was cool, and the sky was clear, dotted with stars. We walked together hand in hand, down the familiar streets that had witnessed so many of our memories. But this time, everything felt different, new, exciting, full of possibilities. When we reached her door, there was a moment of hesitation. The reality of what was happening settled in, and the nervous excitement returned, making my heart race all over again. But this time, it was a good kind of nervous, the kind that came with the thrill of something new and wonderful. I guess this is good night, I said, my voice soft, almost reluctant. Not quite, she replied, a mischievous glint in her eyes. And before I could say anything else, she leaned in and kissed me. It was everything I'd imagined and more. Her lips were soft and warm, and the kiss was tender, filled with all the emotions we'd kept hidden for so long. When we finally pulled away, we were both smiling, a little breathless, but utterly content. I'll see you tomorrow, she said, her voice full of promise. I can't wait, I replied, my heart soaring. As I walked back home that night, the world seemed brighter, more vibrant. The stars shone a little more brightly, and the cool breeze felt refreshing against my skin. I knew deep down that everything was going to be okay, because sometimes taking a risk is the only way to find out just how much you have to gain. And in the end, that letter, the one I almost didn't send, turned out to be the best thing I ever did. It was the start of something beautiful, something I'd been waiting for my entire life. And as I lay in bed that night, my mind replaying every moment of the evening, I knew that this was only the beginning of our story.